we have sort of a problem here. Yeah, you apparently didn't put one of the new cover sheets on your TPS reports.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry about that. I forgot.
Yeah. Did you see the memo about this?
Today we're going to talk about bosses. Not just bosses, horrible bosses. Now, if you're a boss, a supervisor, a leader, pay attention. Because if you're doing these things, guess what? Everybody hates you. Every complaint I've ever heard about a boss usually revolves around micromanaging. It's like trying to play video games with your big brother, leaning over your shoulder, telling you exactly how to jump, shoot, and reload. Nobody likes that.
This is what concerns me, Nick. You're a punctual guy. You know the importance of being here right at 6 a.m., which is what leads me to think that there must be something wrong with the internal clock on our security system.
May have been a minute late.
Well, no, but according to this, you were 2 minutes late. So either you're a liar or this system is off by a full minute.
If you're breathing down your employees' necks, constantly checking on every little thing, you're not being a boss, you're a mom. And guess what? Nobody wants to work for their mom. Guess what? Nobody wants to work for you either. Micromanaging is basically saying, I don't think you can tie your shoes without my supervision. You gotta trust your people. You gotta know who they are. I'm not saying you have to ignore mistakes and policy violations or you can't be involved in a task, but in any job, trusting your people is everything. And if you don't trust them, teach them. Train them to a level where you don't need to be directly involved. As a newly promoted sergeant, this was one of my biggest fears. I didn't want to be a micromanager, but I also didn't want to be absent. I had to find balance. I'm not sure if I found it, but I'm trying to get better, and I think that I am. I think. Like right now, I don't want to micromanage, but I need you to hit that like and subscribe button. I'm going to sit right here. I'm going to watch you until you hit it. I'm gonna micromanage. Boom! What a badass segue. Remember, this advice isn't just for police work, it's for every career. Stop micromanaging. We're all adults here. If you're treating one employee like they're the golden child, feeding them gourmet meals while the rest are eating table scraps, you're creating a toxic work environment. Rewarding hard work is a no-brainer, I get it. But showing favoritism just because someone's your buddy or family, that's a quick way to turn everyone against you as a boss. We all have that one friend who's a great drinking buddy or a cousin we love. But when it comes to building a team, you gotta be smart about it. If you're handpicking your pals for special projects or overlooking more qualified folks for promotions or special teams, you're not a leader. You're a horrible boss and everybody, but your friends, hate you. I mean, think about it. You're putting together a team for a project or some big event. You want the best, right? You want to succeed. But if you're choosing your friends or even choosing diversity over the most qualified people, you're pissing your organization off. Leadership is about putting the right people in the right places. It's not about creating a social club at the office.
I'm also going to need you to go ahead and come in on Sunday, too.
Empathy. It's not just a word, it's a superpower. I teach law enforcement classes all over the country, and one of the things that I teach is that empathy is your most powerful tool. The same holds true if you're a supervisor. If you lack empathy, you're like a boss-level villain in the workplace. You need to understand your team, their struggles, their triumphs. If you're just barking orders without considering the human side of things, you're turning your workplace into a cold, soul-sucking dungeon. The guys who work for you, they're not just cogs in the corporate machine. They've got lives beyond the walls. And that's where empathy comes in. It's not just a workplace thing, it's a life thing. If you're in the corporate world, your team is dealing with their own battles, tight deadlines, demanding projects, the whole 9 yards. If you're in law enforcement, they're dealing with stressful and dangerous calls, they're dealing with high call loads, and possibly staff shortages. As a boss, imagine being in their shoes. It's not about coddling, it's about understanding the battlefield. Then, when they're done with work, they step out of the office, and there's a whole different world waiting for them. They have family, they have bills, responsibilities, real-life stuff that doesn't magically disappear when they punch out. As a boss, you gotta show some empathy. You can't be treating people like robots. It's about understanding, compassion, and being human. A good leader knows how to connect with their team, how to put themselves in their shoes.
And
We need to talk about your flare.
really? I have 15 pieces on.
Well, okay, 15 is the minimum. Okay?
Okay.
Now, it's up to you whether or not you want to just do the bare minimum or, well, like Brian, for example, has 37 pieces of flare on. Now, if you feel that the bare minimum is enough, then okay. But some people choose to wear more, and we encourage that, okay?
Let's not forget about extreme criticism with no solution. It's like nitpicking at every little detail without offering a single constructive solution. You're not helping, you're just creating frustration. It's the equivalent of telling someone that their house is on fire, but you're not pointing them to the exit. You ever meet someone who just can't help but to criticize everything, even the stuff that doesn't matter at all? I've seen supervisors who nitpick the smallest details, stuff that had zero impact on anything. Nobody wants to work for them. I get it, attention to detail is important, but there's a line. When you're tearing into things that really don't matter, it might be time to reassess your priorities. Critiquing the small stuff can be draining. We've got real challenges to tackle, real problems to solve. Let's save the critique for things that actually matter. So when we talk about extreme criticism, I'll share an experience with you that I dealt with many years ago. Many years ago, I was assigned to a federal task force. And truth be told, I was brand new. I was a rookie cop. I probably didn't have the experience that I should have had going on to a task force like this, but my agency trusted me and I went over there, and I was really, really grateful that they did. The guys at the team at the federal task force, they treated me with open arms, and they knew I was new, and I made no bones about it. I came in there and said, listen, I'm green. I'm ready to learn. And they really did teach me a lot. And to this day, some of those guys are some of my really good friends. The problem lied with my supervisor. My supervisor was not so understanding, not so empathetic, and he was extremely critical of everything that I did, things that really didn't matter. In fact, years later, as a supervisor, 20-something years into my career, I look back and I would never treat anybody the way he treated me. Matter of fact, I've always tried to be a mentor to my people, even to the people that I work with, because I like teaching, I like training. I wouldn't treat anybody differently because they were green, because they didn't know anything. That's the time that you prime them, you bring them up, and you teach them things. He was a horrible leader, and he made my job extremely difficult and miserable. I didn't want to be there no more. And here's what happens when you treat people that way. So at that time of my career, I had considered moving my family about 4 or 5 hours north. So I wanted to go north, but I just didn't have the guts to pull the trigger. I really liked the agency that I was working for. Although, remember, the federal task force is something different. I was just attached to that. But I really liked the agency I was working for, and I'd grown up in that area, and I didn't have the guts to pull the trigger until I started working for this guy. He made my day-to-day so miserable, I just didn't want to go to work anymore. I found every reason I could to take additional trainings or take vacation time. I just didn't want to be there. And that's what happens when you treat your people like that. And guess what? I ended up leaving. I ended up pulling the trigger and going to a different agency about 4 or 5 hours north. Now, in hindsight, it was probably a good move. I got tons of experience. It was a larger agency, and I got to move my family where I wanted to live. But I often think back to where if I was happy in that task force, if everything went smoothly, would I have left? I'm not so sure that I would have. Maybe years later I would have pulled the trigger, who knows? My point is, don't treat your people bad. If you're in police work, especially right here, right now, every agency across the country is hiring. This is a bad time to nitpick your people. Be a better boss. Now, I'm not in the corporate environment, but I do understand. I keep hearing these things about worker shortage and we can't find good people. Well, don't chase your good people out. Be a better boss. Stop being the guy that everybody hates. If you realize there's contention in your workplace, your people are calling out sick more often than not, or they're quitting you and your organization, you're probably guilty of these things. Take a step back. Reevaluate and realize that everybody hates working for you. If you fall into this category, stop doing these things. It's not too late.